The first time I heard him speak, he spoke about peace, spoke about unity, spoke about reasoning. I mean, with depths of insight, knowledge. So I said, you know what? When we were, putting this together, I said, Richard is someone that we need to hear speak. It's very important. I'm going to let him introduce himself. There's a saying that says, you can't introduce a great man, but he can speak for himself and tell how much, experience, life he has gone through and all that. So please, let's welcome Richard to the podium to speak on the road of diplomats and building a sustainable future. Thank you so much, Richard.
So far, the words are so inspiring, I feel like throwing my notes away. But I want to try and respect your time, and you'll find out why I want you to recognize time, because we talk about it in a way that we really sometimes make ourselves wonder that we don't really understand what's time. How does it work? I will say this, that every thought that you've ever had in your entire life brought you here today. Every thought since the moment that you first took a breath, and every thought that you've had subsequently to that, is the fact that you were brought here today because of what you think and aspire to. So thank you for coming. Building organizations is not easy. It takes time and it takes determination. But the one thing that we need to do is to create unity with all of us. So sometimes I like to shake things up. And are you guys up for a little shake up? Yes. Are you up for a little shake up? A little upset, a little wrench tossed into the plan? Let's sit beside somebody you don't know. Please, would you start off? Would you take a seat with someone over here, and would someone over here go and sit over there? And if you wouldn't mind, would you mind leaving your lovely wife, okay, and maybe going to sit over there? Was there an empty seat? Can I get everybody to do that just for a moment? I want to see and show you what it's like, okay, to be in a different place in the same place. So right now, your past, your present, and your future, okay, are meeting at this exact moment. So we can't even begin to comprehend what are the next things that are going to happen because of our attendance here today. Do you think that nothing will happen? Or do you think something magnificent is going to happen because of the way we changed our seating? It's insignificant, and yet in some cases, it's probably one of the most powerful and most interesting things that we as humanity can do. How's it feel? How does it feel? Does it feel a little bit kind of uncertain now that we've intermingled? Okay. Does it, a little bit, right? Okay, thank you. So you see, great, that's fantastic. And that's what I'm hoping we can walk out of here with, okay, is that tremendous enthusiasm. So I'd like to share something with the African delegates that are here today, because ironically, my business is, if you will, ignored in Canada and the United States, because my thoughts are a little too far out for most of the people. But recently, and in fact, in meeting Adewale, perfect entrance timing, Adewale. I met Adewale, who invited me to speak at another event, and it was truly a life-changing experience for me, because I have never been in that kind of a situation where the majority of the people were not white. So my parents, okay, who didn't know each other, back in 1949, they lived in Tanzania. Today, Tanzania, then Tanganyika. And after the war was finished, the most ironic thing happened, okay, was the women and the children who traveled from Poland, which is my back country, from Poland through Russia and Siberia to Kazakhstan, from Kazakhstan to Tehran, and from Tehran to this small town that I couldn't even find with my mother's documents and papers to say what little town did they grow up in Tanganyika. They were teenagers and young people who had been missed by the war. And in fact, in 1949, 5 years after the war ended, these people were liberated, women and children primarily. And not one of them ever screamed, okay, how unfortunate this was that this happened to us. They were misplaced for years beyond when everybody else already had a chance to go home. So when I think about that, I think to myself, I have an appreciation for Africa, because without Africa, my parents probably would have never, have gotten together. And if they didn't get together, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you. So I'm thrilled at the fact that I have an opportunity to present to everyone. Adewale, perfect, you stated, we're all one. Okay, we're all one. Pardon me, I'm getting old, and I like to take a look at my notes to make sure that I don't miss anything. It's very difficult I find at 68 years of age, the world is starting to crowd around me. But having said that, one of the other things that really inspired me when I got into the investment business, I met a woman named Gertrude Matschie. And maybe you don't know her, but you should know her, because she wrote a book called Born on the Continent, Ubuntu. I don't know if I presented that word properly. Ubuntu, thank you. But the reality is, the meaning as I understand it is, I am because we are. I am because we are. You are because we are. You want to stand up for your rights in your organizations? This is the way that we've got to go out and do it. And we don't talk about the things that we've talked about 1,000 times. We want to talk about the things that we're going to talk about one time. We know our problems. We know what's going on. There's nobody in here who can plead ignorance. We're all responsible because the majority of people talk, but they do nothing. So I decided to look at what's going on in the world. And the population of Africa, as I understand it, is 1.5 billion. And 70% of that 1.5 billion are under 30 years of age. What do you think they're looking for from today forward? What are they looking for? What are these 70% of 1 billion? So we're talking 800 million people that are under the age of 30? What are we going to do with these people if we keep doing the same things over and over? So the youth are looking for jobs. So let's provide, as we leave and we depart, let's provide them with meaningful opportunities, that are not just a regurgitation of someone's tongue wagging. This is important. We are at a crisis. One of my colleagues, a gentleman by the name of James Boyd Fuller, whose great uncle is a man by the name of Buckminster Fuller, very well known. And why do I mention James? Because James is a soil remediation expert. In other words, he watches to see what's going on in our world today from a perspective of the Mississippi River. And the Mississippi River starts in the northern United States, and it runs through farming country where they use tons of fertilizer. And that fertilizer gets washed into the Mississippi River at the top. And it goes all the way to Mexico, to the Gulf of, I'm going to make a little joke here. Sorry? Gulf of Mexico. It's not the Gulf of Mexico anymore. According to Trump, it's, the Gulf of America, right? So anyway, the other thing is, we have leaders, in Africa and other countries, Argentina, the different countries in Africa. We have people all over the world now. And in fact, these people are now starting, and Traore, who's doing an amazing job from what I get from what I can see. So I can only comment on the things that I know based on what it is that I see and I hear. But these people are making changes. The other day, Traore said, no criminal is going to go and work or are going to go sit in a jail cell. We're going to put that person to work to pay off, the crime that they committed. Wow. Wow. Is that like a movement in a positive direction? Ask yourselves, is that something that I want to see in the future? We are here. I've heard the words already. We want to end corruption. How do we end corruption? Most of us don't even know it exists. Most of us don't want to admit the fact that it exists. So how do we go from, as Adewale mentioned, how do we go from this idealistic platform where we want to stand here and talk about what we can do to save the world? But what are we actually going to do about it? Because the actions, okay, are the important things. So I implore you, I beg you, think about all the people that you can influence. You can go to the UN in New York and you can say, there was this crazy guy in Toronto, okay, who talked to us about a world with no money. Well, yeah, because 100 years ago, there were no cars, or approximately 100 years ago. Do you know that the electric car was invented in, I think, 1896? Okay, we had electric cars, okay, over 100 years ago, and we think it's something new. Everybody wants a Tesla, right? Okay. I want to say that rather than focusing on what our world lacks, we have a vision, okay, of the future that informs our actions of today to create that tomorrow. The things that I'm sharing with you is what led me to the vision of time equity to solve the challenges that our world faces today, because I spent 40 years after being a mechanic for 7 years. And I learned my people skills as a mechanic. I sold tires, I did exhaust systems, I did everything that my customers needed from the standpoint of my background. And I made relationships. And in fact, it was one of my customers who came in one day and told me about a problem that I helped him solve. And he got me to work in his business. From a peripheral edge, I started working in a nightclub. I thought, this is amazing. And I went there for the one purpose, because I knew I was going to meet somebody that was going to help me change my life. Let me impress upon you that each and every one of us here can change each other's lives by the things that we do and the things that we say. Do I have any agreement on any of this? Thank you very much. So when I started talking about changing the financial system, it was because I was blessed. In 1988, I was approached by a gentleman from Jamaica, okay, Chinese Jamaican gentleman, fantastic guy, and he invited me to come into the world of financial planning. And I thought, whoa, a mechanic who's going to do financial planning. And I woke up one day to go to work and I wore my cowboy boots, okay, and I took my plastic briefcase and I laughed with my girlfriend and I said, I'm going to go work as a financial advisor. And I was so excited. 7 years later, we had the 1987 market crash. Okay, in 1988, okay, Michael Lee Chin approached me and he said, Rick, so nice to see you. What are you doing here today? I said, I'm doing the same thing that you are, looking for a new client, a new prospect. And he says, no, that's not what I'm doing. I said, what are you doing? And he asked me, how do you differentiate yourself from 3,500 financial advisors? And I looked at him and I started to laugh. And he said, Rick, what's so funny? This is the most important question that I ever ask anybody. And I said, look, Mike, if I knew how to differentiate myself, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you. No disrespect, but I'd be out doing it. And he burst out laughing. He said, that's the best answer I've ever had. Okay? I was wowed. Here's a guy who's obviously way more educated, way more affluent, okay, and everything that I was dreaming about, he was already there. And we started a fund, an investment vehicle with $9 million. And when I decided to leave the business due to things that I saw that weren't right, we had grown to $13 billion over a 15-year time frame. And I took my retirement ticket out. I said, cash me out, I'm leaving, because I don't like what's happening. And what was happening was a direct violation, okay, to the entire investment business, which states past performance is no indicator of future results. And yet, the majority of people in my business who are educated, CFPs, PFPs, all the designations that you can think of, these people don't know how to transition that thought into action. It's an embarrassment. But if you read chapter 4, and by the way, today each of you, if you like, are going to get a copy of my book. I've never charged for my book. I give them away to anybody who wants one, anywhere I speak. I mail them out. I have a link on every communication that I send out that sends everybody to a link that says, this is time equity. Okay, this is where you can go and get the information and read chapter 4. If anything, it will do one thing. It will show you how shallow our financial system is. But if it's a shallow system, that means we can change it. We can make it different. We can make it new. In fact, why spend all that time trying to figure out how to fix something that's broken when we can throw the whole damn thing out and start from the very beginning? We have the technology. We have everything that we need. And yet these people who are running the world are telling us that we need to run trade deficits of trillions of dollars. Do you know that that's the defense budget of the world? $2.4 trillion. Okay, guess what? If we stopped setting aside a defense budget of $2.4 trillion, we can solve the problems, okay, of sustainability. Okay, we can solve all of the problems on that $2.4 trillion. We can give every kid food, a home, an education with $2.4 trillion. We don't need the money. Okay, we need a way to transform who we are now, okay, into a society, okay, that's going to have no more excuses for the crap, okay, that we want people to believe with regards to our world is safe. Going back just for a quick second, because I digressed, James Boyd Fuller, his book is called Deep Calls to the Deep. And he talks about, okay, all of the problems in the Mississippi River system. And what's amazing is that flows into the Gulf that we already laughed at. And guess what else? Okay, hypoxic zones are coming up in unprecedented levels. Hypoxic zones, which I didn't know what they were or are, but I know now because James wrote an entire chapter about me in his book. And I was floored that someone that I knew would write a book about me and my work. James told me that we have 23% hypoxic poison, no oxygen places in our oceans. Okay? No oxygen. Do you know what that means if the world continues to lose its oxygen that's in the ocean? We will die as a species. We will not be able to breathe because there won't be any air to breathe. And yet we look at that as, who cares? There you go. Okay, do you want to solve it that way? Do you really want to just give up and toss in the towel? I'm sorry, Lloyd, okay, I love you, but I'm a fighter. Okay, I'm not going to stand here and do something or to tell you to do something that I'm not doing on my own. I created the time clock, okay, not really, but it's my sort of idea. And I use the 12 positions on the clock to identify 12 areas, okay, that we must look after. The first one, we need to understand how a new system called time equity can replace capitalism and can actually be way better for the world. The second, 2 o'clock, okay, is about peace. Not just global peace. Peace starts here in each and every one of us. Right? Do you feel peaceful? Do you feel agitated? I hope I agitate you. Number 3, everybody has a right to food and shelter. How much wastage do we have, okay, in food? How many things are going on all over the world that there's all sorts of different things that have to get moved because of the time aspects? People, these are all just money games. The truckers, the gas people, everybody and everybody. But at the same time, okay, we have to figure out how we can provide decent food and shelter for everybody on the planet. We need to have the education system completely unravel, because we're looking at things that are 100 years old. We have healthcare that is an abomination. In Canada, we are short 2.5 million doctors. The lineups for a hospital, okay, are in some cases, and I can speak to this because I was in the hospital a couple of years ago, and it took them 18 hours before they could get to me. How's that in Africa? Is there lineups, okay, at the hospitals? Do we need new doctors? Why is it that when we look at healthcare, why is it that we can't combine all of the medical skills of the entire world to create, okay, a program for all doctors? In other words, why can't a doctor from India or from Africa work in Canada with their licensing and their education? That should be standard, okay? And the way that I see my world, okay, well, shall hopefully have enough time to finish presenting, and I apologize if I go over. But on the other hand, I don't, because the more powerfully I speak, the more powerfully you listen, and maybe we can create that change that we're looking for. So we need the environment. We need to be extremely careful with our environment. We have to make sure that these pictures of these windmills, okay, that cost more, okay, to build than the electricity that they produce. So when we start looking at these things, we got to start not just simply looking at what somebody says. We must now start to tear that apart and start to understand, is this a fact? Is this the truth? Is this what we need to do? Because people are talking about, okay, things like the cost of saving the world. Well, I've already got $2.4 trillion set aside for the world to solve these problems. Why can't the rest of the world get on my bandwagon? Resources. Okay? We have an abundance of resources. We just have to learn how to rethink them. We have energy. We have energy in places that people who are in positions of strength, okay, they tell us, like the big companies, you know, Siemens Electric, General Electric, right? Okay? They don't want to see your invention. If you take your invention to these companies and say, I've got a great machine that'll make way more electricity than we'll ever need, these people buy the patent, okay, so they can kill it, so they can maintain control and prosperity for themselves. Technology has changed unbelievably in the last 40 years of my life. I imagine it's impacted each and every one of us in one way or another. So technology, okay, is one of our better things in the context of our own futures. Product quality and waste management. Has anybody ever heard of planned obsolescence? Anybody ever heard of that? Okay, so here's what the companies do, okay? Somebody builds a cell phone, and then 3 years later, they got to rebuild it because otherwise they're not going to make profits when the cell phones start selling. So then they bring out edition 3, then they bring out edition 10, and they bring out edition 11. Like, do we really need all these editions of cell phones? I'm still using a BlackBerry. People laugh at me. They go, you're still using a K2? Yeah, man, I am, because I just want to make a phone call and text a message. Politics and governance. I don't even want to say anything about that. We know what that's all about, don't we? Okay, do you trust your government? Come on, guys, laugh. Please, okay, laugh. Do you trust your government? I sure as hell don't. Okay, and you know what? Somebody's going to get, pardon the expression, pissed off that I said that, and then they're going to call me and send the police off because I'm expressing myself. Yeah, take me there, please. So I will say this, okay? If you will, to implement the best versions of the 12 characteristics or the 12 spokes of the clock, okay, without any financial cost or illusion of it's not in the budget. That's the excuse that we use. Oh, to fix this, it's not in the budget, I'm sorry. Make it into the budget. Time equity, a time-based system to replace capitalism and eliminate and reduce crime, corruption, genocide, greed, manipulation, poverty, power, and war, which the current system perpetuates. What do you think about killing for profit? How about children? Okay, am I going to strike a nerve here? Okay, come on. We're killing children for a profit? Okay, I hear a lot of silence. I want to hear your voices when you go home. And I want to see each and every one of you connect with me, not for the benefit of me, for the benefit of you to share my book, my thoughts. If you like it, get it out to the public, because that's the way it's going to happen. We're afraid. We're afraid of less than 1 billion people who are running the whole show, but there's 7 billion more of us who are angry, and they don't want to do, and they don't want to be enslaved. They want to have the rights like everybody else. And it can be a reality as long as we stand for it. So nothing, in my opinion, is more valuable than our time. Time equity is here to usher in an age of equality, true democracy, a sustainable planet, and peace, to work together in realizing our unlimited potential. The title of my book, okay? The Capitalist's Worst Nightmare Come True, the Crucifixion of Capital. It's not the crucifixion of capital. It's the resurrection of humanity. Okay? There's a huge difference in those statements. So, time, nothing's more valuable than your time. Go to a hospital and walk in to see somebody who's dying. And ask them, okay, what would they pay to have another minute or another day or another week or a month or a year to live? What would it be worth? Time cannot be bastardized, okay, by human hands, because it's a creation of God. So we can't ruin it. We just choose to ignore it. But now that my book is out, I hope that nobody's going to ignore it anymore, and we turn this world upside down for the majority of the people who elect these people, or supposedly elect these people. And if we find that these elections to these people are not proper, then perhaps even charges should be laid from the standpoint of crimes against humanity. Anybody know the word Nuremberg? Anybody know what that was all about? Yeah, small handful of people know what Nuremberg was about. Time is all about sharing our gifts, services, and resources with others. And while we have equal access to the gifts and resources that others provide, so then again, is your time worth any more than my time? Or is my time worth any more than yours? And I will tell you, so many people constantly slap me upside my head. And you know what they say to me? They go, oh no, I'm a doctor, or I'm this, or I'm that, and I'm more important than you, so my time is worth more than yours. And yet, if that same doctor or surgeon walked into a dirty, filthy hospital room where he could not perform surgery, who are we looking for? The doctor, or are we concerned with the patient? We forget the patient in these equations. So let's try and band together and say, yeah, despite our differences, we face realities of our world's challenges together, no matter what. We're all here as brothers and sisters. I don't care what color you are. And Adewale, you made a beautiful statement, man, we all bleed red, okay, and we all breathe oxygen. If there's anything that creates a unity in humanity, those are at least two things, okay, that we should be taking our time and recognizing. And I took something else just for a minute. Am I going too far? Is it okay? Time, interestingly enough, right, I broke it down into to the individual letters. So I said time is spelled T for truth, I for inspired, meaningful, okay, and then experience. And then I thought, wow, that's really cool. A truth-inspired, meaningful experience. Doesn't that sound like a great way to use time? And then I thought, what happens if I turn time backwards and I create the word emit, E-M-I-T. And E stands for equality, M for motivated, I for inclusive, T for togetherness. So time, and then flipped on the other side, emit, okay, creates a truth-inspired, meaningful experience with equality, motivated, inclusiveness, togetherness. Let's have a hand, okay, for what we can do about time. Love it. Okay, everyone is equal. Okay, equality is defined by the removal of capitalism, which subsequently eliminates income inequality. So time equity replaces money. We don't need it anymore. We don't need its excuses. We don't need the criminal interest rates that they charge you on mortgages and loans so that they can continue to live a life that you and I can never come to understand. Democracy. Time equity through equality creates the foundation for a new true democracy, including a direct democracy by the people. Democracy is not the minority telling the majority what to do. It's the other way around. We got to remember that. Transitioning to a 13-month calendar is another great idea that it will add, because instead of having 12 months, we'll have 13 months. Okay, it's been done before apparently, okay, but nobody really liked it. In fact, in 1932, I think it was the UN that shut it down. But they basically said that a 13-month calendar aligns up way better from the standpoint of Monday to Friday. What day's the birthday? What day do you pay your rent? Okay, they'll all fall under the same day, and therefore there'll be less confusion in our monetary systems. And I will guarantee you, go to your bank, if you have a mortgage, ask your banker to tell you how, okay, they calculate the numbers on the interest that you have to pay on the mortgage, because nobody asks any questions about how did they calculate it, okay? I calculated it, and I took it to a whole bunch of different banks because I decided, Michael's comments to me once upon a time were, don't buy milk, okay? Own the cow. So, peace. We enter quite possibly the first era of peacefulness amongst all humans. Transformation of education and vocations. You heard me talk about that from the standpoint of, medical doctors being licensed across the world. Sustainability. Okay, all humanity is responsible for the evolution of sustainability. Practicing ecology over economy by shifting the economy from monetary to solely focus on the production and consumption of goods and services. We focus on the ecology, securing the integrity of the planet that we call home. I don't know about you guys. I have 3 children, one 36, one 34, and one who's 28. And God bless, maybe they're going to want to have children at some point in time in their futures. I would love for them to be able to have children with confidence, because today, with the shape of the world and the things that are going on, I feel very guilty about being responsible for being 3 children to come into this hellhole. But on the other hand, I'm also very excited about the fact that maybe one of my children, or your child, or your child, or your child, okay, will be a person who will do a tremendous job in changing the direction of who we are and what we're doing. So 25 years of education, okay, 25 years of work, and then 25 years to, let's just say, perhaps enjoy ourselves. So if we all live to that ripe old average of North Americans of about 72 years of age, we can have a wonderful life. We can explore. Anybody know wealth dynamics? Anybody know NLP? Anybody know any of these upper echelon types of education systems? Because that's where we can take our young people today who are going to try and figure out, what am I going to do for a living? Because it all depends on how much money I make. It's not about the money that you make, it's about living. Students identify their gifts. So when children are born, not like fresh out of the womb or the cradle or anything like that, but the reality is that the children can be educated, they can start to be watched by people who understand. So if you perhaps listen to me, you will hear that I use 3 different words in my presentations. I use looks like, verbiage, sounds like, okay, and feels like, right? And each characteristic of motivation is why people, okay, can stand up in a room and touch the heart of everybody, because they speak to everybody. I've learned how to speak to everybody, I hope, because you may be visual, you may be auditory, you may be kinesthetic. And I want to make sure that I can do, okay, the best for me, my family, and subsequently to inspire others to take a look at, how do I want my children? Are you thinking about maybe one day having children? Yes? Okay. Do you want to bring them into this world as it sits? That's why Lloyd's here. Okay, so time is tracked through blockchain. Okay, so blockchain can take out all of the, let's just say, imperfections of the existing financial system, right? Okay, that's hidden with payola under the table and everything else that's going on with it. Do you love it or do you hate it? I hate it. So entrepreneurs submit their hours. We go to work. We might not even have to work 40 hours a week. Maybe we'll tune that down to 20 hours a week so that we can go out and do other things, be with our families, okay, spend more time maybe doing something else that you love to do besides the job that you're doing. But there's so many ways to be able to open up in this that every person, if they heard my presentation, every person would want to find a way to do the thing that they love to do, right? I mean, is everybody in here doing what they want to do? Can I have a show of hands? Everybody doing what they want to do? No? Not you're doing, not interested? Okay. Yeah. Good. So, as we look at all of these different things, people are always asking me, well, how does time equity work? It's not rocket science, okay? Everything continues to go exactly the way it is because greed will just end. People will not have to go and buy 50 rolls of toilet paper because they're anticipating that there's going to be some kind of a calamity where they're going to need all that toilet paper. I'm down to my last 3 lines, and I want to share these with you from the bottom of my heart. Close your eyes for a moment, please. Imagine the world that you want to live in. No crime, corruption, or war. All working together to better serve one another. A peaceful world. Thank you very much for your attention. And thanks to Signe for helping out with everything that she does for me.